What looked like a standard social media update for a high-profile wedding. Anniversary was actually a devastating metaphor for tactical erasure. In a carefully curated selection of previously unseen photographs from her multi-million-dollar royal wedding, Meghan Markle did something extraordinary. She systematically cropped out the British royal family, leaving only the back of King Charles's head as a faint ghost of the institution that gave her a global platform. This single public moment exposed the profound crisis currently unfolding behind the gates of Montecito, where the grand illusion of power is rapidly colliding with the cold reality of commercial desperation. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand the dark psychological truths behind this sudden onslaught of public relations maneuvers. We will unpack how a highly publicized trip to Switzerland and a series of hyper-stylized family videos are not signs of a thriving empire, but calculated reactions to a crumbling brand. More importantly, we will examine what happens when the weaponization of victimhood no longer yields a profit, and why the ultimate survival of this marriage is now facing its most dangerous existential threat. To truly comprehend the gravity of this collapse, we must first return to the golden era. In May 2018, St. George's Chapel was bathed in an unlikely, flawless sunlight. It was a day that felt as though the gods themselves had aligned to create a modern fairy tale. For Meghan, it was the absolute culmination of a lifelong ambition. Transitioning from a secondary television actress to a global duchess in a taxpayer-funded spectacle watched by millions. The world saw a historic modernization of the monarchy, but behind the scenes, a different narrative was forming. There was a fundamental assumption that a centuries-old institution could be treated like a Hollywood plaything, easily manipulated to serve a personal brand. It was a moment of unmatched privilege and wealth, a golden peak that makes the current descent into the gig economy of celebrity hit with a profound sense of schadenfreude. The illusion did not last because the palace refused to bend. When the realization set in that the British monarchy required duty and restraint rather than self-promotion, the first major rupture occurred. The departure from royal life was framed as a pursuit of freedom, but it effectively detached the couple from the source of their gravity. Once in California, the challenge shifted from maintaining a legacy to funding an incredibly expensive lifestyle. This brings us to the recent catalyst that has left royal analysts stunned. The 8th wedding anniversary should have been a moment of quiet personal celebration. Instead, the world was treated to a public display so aggressively stage-managed, it signaled immediate panic. The decision to post historical images completely devoid of the royal family was a calculated attempt to rewrite history. Analysts noted the profound irony of using a platform built entirely by the monarchy while simultaneously trying to unperson the very people who provided it. No one would care about their commercial endeavors or lifestyle, brands if not for the titles gifted by that very family, yet the images attempted to present an independent sovereignty that simply does not exist. But the historical rewrite was only the beginning of the weekend's public relations offensive. Within hours, a second video was foisted upon the public, depicting an intensely intimate family scene inside their Montecito mansion. We see Harry presenting a birthday cake, children crying out in the background, and a conversation about penguins staying together for life. To the untrained eye, it is a heartwarming glimpse into paradise. To a psychological PR analyst, it is a glaring red flag. Truly secure couples do not feel the agonizing need to advertise the depth of their love to a cynical global audience. This over-the-top display of marital bliss arrived precisely as reports surfaced from credible outlets suggesting that the Duke and Duchess are increasingly living separate lives. It was a classic reactionary ping-pong match, using an aggressive public display of affection to mask a deeper underlying insecurity. The panic becomes even clearer when we look across the Atlantic. Just days prior, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, made a triumphant and deeply celebrated return to frontline international duties during a high-profile tour of Italy. The contrast between the two women could not be more devastating. Catherine deported herself with a natural understated charm, arriving at venues with minimal fuss, a single driver, and an immediate, unforced connection with the public. It was a display of genuine royal mystique. For Meghan, watching her estranged sister-in-law dominate global headlines with such effortless grace appears to have triggered an immediate reactionary counter-programming. Within 48 hours, Meghan materialized in Switzerland, unveiling a memorial for victims of online bullying. While the cause itself is undeniably noble, the execution exposed a staggering moral contradiction. Hours before, standing at the podium to lecture the world on the emotional perils of social media, Meghan shared a highly curated photograph on Instagram showing her daughter Lilibet inside a hyper-materialistic, ultra-luxurious walk-in closet. The press immediately labeled it a moment of breathtaking hypocrisy. To use a child and a display of extreme wealth to generate social media engagement, right before condemning the platform, reveals a profound tone deafness. Furthermore, the substance of the Switzerland trip began to unravel under forensic scrutiny. Rumors and analytical reports quickly circulated, suggesting that portions of the speech bore a striking resemblance to an essay written by an academic in the Chicago Tribune, leading to uncomfortable questions about plagiarism. Other digital analysis platforms claimed the text bore all the hallmarks of being generated by artificial intelligence. The tragic irony of utilizing social media to condemn social media and potentially using AI to trash technology exposes a brand that has completely lost its creative compass. As industry insiders have noted, the couple seems trapped in the pattern of hopping from one trending hashtag to another, lacking the patience or the discipline to see any long-term commitment through to fruition. This pattern of quitting has now infected their core commercial relationships. The initial multi-million-dollar deals with streaming giants were predicated on the infinite allure of royal access. But as the royal currency is systematically depleted, the financial anxiety behind closed doors has reached a boiling point. Prince Harry, raised in palaces where wealth was an invisible, atmospheric certainty, remains fundamentally unequipped to understand the mechanics of financial difficulty. He does not comprehend the urgency of the gig economy. This growing friction has led to a devastating realization within their inner circle. The Sussex brand is running out of time. To make matters worse, Harry's standing among his former peers has deteriorated into an echo of royal history's darkest chapters. Military comrades from his time in Afghanistan and high-level donors from his veteran campaigns have begun to quietly distance themselves. The whispers growing louder in London and California point to a devastating psychological parallel. Harry is increasingly viewed not as a global leader, but as a younger version of his uncle Prince Andrew. Both share the exact same psychological DNA, a pompous entitled worldview born of immense privilege, combined with an inability to realize that status must be handled with modesty and dignity. Like Andrew, Harry appears to use his inherited position to look down on others, completely blind to his own limitations. We are now at a point of no return. The grand Hollywood experiment is stalling, major donors are bailing, and the financial safety net is tearing at the seams. Netflix is quietly turning off the monetary tap, refusing to fund expensive development unless the couple puts up their own capital first. Trapped between a looming financial crisis and a profound internal divide, the illusion of paradise has vanished, setting the stage for a retaliation that will change everything. The most devastating retaliation against the Duke and Duchess of Sussex is not a coordinated smear campaign or a bitter legal battle. It is the agonizing, crushing weight of institutional apathy. For years, the couple's entire commercial narrative relied on the tension between themselves and the British crown. They needed the palace to react to leak to fight back, because that friction generated global headlines and massive streaming payouts. But the monarchy, guided by a centuries-old instinct for survival, simply stopped playing the game. Buckingham Palace deployed the ultimate weapon of aristocratic warfare, complete impenetrable silence. By refusing to engage, the royal family starved the Sussex brand of the very oxygen it needed to survive in the hyper-competitive ecosystem of American media. This strategic freeze from London has exposed the profound fragility of their California experiment. Without a royal antagonist to fight, the couple has been forced to rely entirely on their own creative output, and the results have been commercially disastrous. Hollywood, a town that respects nothing but measurable success, has quietly began to close its doors. The initial wave of A-list invitations has dried up. The lucrative podcast deals were unceremoniously cancelled. Major talent agencies have struggled to successfully rebrand. A couple whose primary cultural contribution was complaining about the institution that made them famous. What we are witnessing is the quiet, ruthless eviction from the top tier of celebrity society. Behind the carefully manicured hedges of Montecito, this professional collapse is inevitably bleeding into their personal reality, creating an environment of staggering isolation for Prince Harry. To understand his current psychological state, one must look at the staggering totality of his estrangement. He has been severed from his homeland, stripped of his cherished military patronages, and alienated from the lifelong friends who once protected him. He currently exists in a gilded exile entirely constructed by his wife. surrounded by an ecosystem of public relations, managers, lawyers, and lifestyle gurus. He is a man who was raised within a deeply structured, fiercely loyal brotherhood, now navigating the cutthroat, transactional gig economy of Hollywood, where loyalty only extends as far as the next invoice. The human tragedy of this isolation is magnified exponentially by the ongoing health crisis within the royal family. With King Charles facing serious medical challenges, the reality of time and mortality is setting in. Yet the doors to Clarence House and Buckingham Palace remain firmly locked to Harry. The permanent rifts that were created through explosive television interviews and tell-all memoirs cannot simply be undone by a flight across the Atlantic. He traded his family's trust for temporary commercial gain, and the consequences of that transaction are now a permanent reality. Observers note that the psychological toll of watching his father and sister-in-law battle illness from thousands of miles away, knowing his own actions cemented this divide, must be an incredibly heavy burden to bear. This internal pressure is beginning to manifest in subtle yet undeniable public shifts. What we are currently observing is a slow, methodical brand decoupling. Notice how the couple, once entirely inseparable in every public appearance, are increasingly pursuing divergent, individualistic paths. Meghan is desperately trying to establish herself as a solo lifestyle mogul, pivoting toward artisanal jams, cooking shows, and high-end aesthetic branding. Harry, meanwhile, appears adrift, occasionally attempting to revive his credibility in the veteran advocacy space. But their two narratives no longer mesh. It is a slow, agonizing professional divorce. Her attempts to commercialize their domestic life inherently clash with his desperate need to be taken seriously as a global humanitarian. These subtle signals carry devastating, deeper meaning. When a couple whose entire public identity was built on the premise of an unbreakable, unified front against the world begins to operate in silos, it suggests that the core foundation is fracturing. The performative videos of birthday cakes and penguin metaphors are not evidence of a thriving partnership. They are the defensive maneuvers of a public relations team trying to mask the reality of a house divided. The brand decoupling reveals a quiet acknowledgement that their combined power has failed, and they must now attempt to salvage whatever individual cultural currency they have left. This story resonates so deeply with millions of viewers because it transcends the standard bounds of celebrity gossip. It has evolved into a modern morality play about the illusion of power, the destructive nature of unchecked hubris, and the devastating consequences of the weaponization of victimhood. It forces us to examine what happens when individuals are handed the ultimate platform and choose to dismantle it from the inside out. We watch with a mixture of fascination and pity because we are witnessing the tragic collapse of an empire built entirely on grievances. It is a cautionary tale about burning every bridge to illuminate your path, only to finally realize you are permanently stranded on an island. Looking forward, the psychological ticking clock is growing louder. Industry analysts and legal observers frequently point to the looming 10-year mark of their California residency in the state of California. Passing the decade threshold in a marriage carries massive legal and financial implications regarding the division of assets and lifelong spousal support. While we cannot predict the future of their private relationship, the historical pattern of Meghan's life suggests a ruthless pragmatism. She has consistently abandoned institutions, projects, and relationships once they no longer serve her upward trajectory. If the Sussex brand continues its downward spiral and Prince Harry's commercial value finally hits zero, the ultimate betrayal may come not from the British press or the royal family, but from within the very walls of their Montecito home. The tragic irony is that they achieved exactly what they demanded. They demanded total freedom, absolute control over their narrative, and the ability to commercialize their lives without palace oversight. They got all of it. And in securing that freedom, they systematically destroyed the very mystique that made anyone care in the first place. They are now free to do whatever they want. But they are rapidly discovering the terrifying reality that the world has simply stopped watching. Thank you for exploring this complex narrative with us. If you found this forensic breakdown insightful, please take a moment to subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and share this video with those who appreciate a deeper analysis of modern public relations. We will continue to monitor these subtle shifts and bring you the unvarnished truth. Until next time.